Hey there! Welcome to episode 2 of Q&A Friday. I want to first, before I start, just thank you guys for the awesome feedback that I've gotten. Um, Also, thank you for sending me all of your questions because obviously I can't do this without your questions, so keep them coming. Again, email me any question that you have about food, body image, or just living an authentic life. I would be happy to answer them, and all questions get answered anonymously. So the question that I have today is going to be about how do I tell the difference between eating from my emotions and just having hunger in general, like physical hunger. So essentially, it's telling the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. And what I want to be able to do is give you some quick and dirty ways to begin to just notice the difference in the way it feels in your body. So they're just kind of rules of thumb that you want to keep in mind. And each time that you feel hungry, kind of ask yourself, okay, where does my hunger fall on the spectrum? So the first one is that emotional hunger is usually fast and furious, whereas physical hunger is slow and steady. What I mean by that is, if you've ever been, this happens to me sometimes, sitting in the car in traffic, and all of a sudden you are just out of nowhere, fast and furious, just this urge to eat. Like, oh, I gotta eat something right now. That's probably emotional hunger because physical hunger is slow and steady. It builds up. And what you want to think about is the way you experience physical hunger. It's, you might get a little sense of being hungry. A lot of times, unfortunately, we ignore that. And then it's going to get louder and louder. Eventually, you'll start to feel it. You're going to end up feeling it physically eventually. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it gets louder. It builds up gradually over time. And so that's your first one. Fast and furious, slow and steady. So the second one is going to be that emotional hunger tends to be specific, whereas physical hunger tends to be more general. What I mean by that is you've got emotional hunger showing up as I need a Big Mac, I need chocolate, I need a gordito from Taco Bell or whatever it is you like. You know, when you're physically hungry, your body doesn't care if you eat a Big Mac or if you eat a salad or if you eat a gordito. It just wants food. If you were on a desert island, it wouldn't be craving something in particular as much as it would be wanting nourishment. It would be wanting food. So when you're hungry and you just get this sense, I need to eat something, I just need to put food in myself, that's probably more likely physical hunger. But if you are just struck with this need to have, Mrs. C's chocolate or, something very specific, then chances are it's emotional hunger. Um, so you've got fast and furious and specific, and then you've got slow and steady and more general. Okay, the third one is a little different in that it's about where you experience your emotional versus physical hunger. Most emotional hunger is going to be experienced above the neck. And what I mean by that is it's experienced as a thought. Okay, you think about the food. You're really kind of almost romanticizing the food. It's like, oh, I can't stop thinking about that. Or it may be experienced as you salivate. Like if you've ever caught yourself watching a TV commercial for, I don't know, McDonald's French fries, and all of a sudden your mouth waters, that's a response to an association you've made with a memory of eating those French fries and how good they are. Doesn't mean you're necessarily physically hungry. Okay, what I mean by below the neck with physical hunger is typically you are going to experience hunger in the gut. And that is just a rule of thumb that you want to think about. I know sometimes you get headaches when you're really hungry, although you shouldn't let yourself go that long. But yes, sometimes we do experience some of our physical symptoms above the neck. So this is all these rules are going to be general. That goes without saying. But they are good. It's a good framework to work within. So you've got fast and furious, specific, above the neck, as opposed to slow and steady, general, below the neck, okay, in the gut. The last one is more of an emotional response, but typically, if you eat from an emotional place, you will experience some sense of guilt or remorse. There will be a knowing that will manifest in an emotional response. Um, as opposed to when you fill yourself and you eat from a place of physical, just meeting your physical need, typically you don't have that response. Now, this is not all the time. This is not going to be all the time, but especially if you're overeating from an emotional place, that's when you're going to get the guilt response. That's when you're going to have that negative emotional response. And it depends on your relationship with food. Certainly, if you find yourself compulsive overeating, you will reference that negative feeling. And it's just a good benchmark. Try to look at these things without judgment. Try to see them with a sense of objectivity, more like you're kind of curious about watching your own eating habits. As you do, and as you start to see, wow, this is an emotional hunger as opposed to this is a physical hunger, you will get better at being proactive and feeling more aware of who's making the choices, why you're making them, and it will allow you to make better choices in terms of feeding yourself and in terms of dealing with hunger that is not emotional in a way that is emotional rather in a way that actually meets the need, because anytime you're experiencing emotional hunger there's really something going on underneath. So for example, maybe you're bored, maybe you're sad, maybe some other trigger is setting you off, like stress. And learning a better way to deal with that only comes from first learning, well, what it is. So you have to be aware of it before you can change it. So I hope that these little quick and dirty tricks for distinguishing the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger are helpful. Keep the questions coming, guys. I can't wait to answer the next one on the next Q&A Friday.